I stood at the periphery of the room, a silent observer, as the scene unfolded before me. She was close to him, intimately so, and the energy arcing between them was an almost tangible entity, vibrant and undeniable. He chanced a glance in my direction, a flicker of uncertainty, of nascent apprehension, in his eyes. But she, with a quiet, unwavering assurance, kept him steady, her gaze never once faltering, guiding him with a gentle yet powerful unspoken command. I could feel an undeniable, almost magnetic pull to step forward, to become an active participant in what was transpiring, to no longer remain a mere spectator on the sidelines. This, after all, was his gift. But in that moment, a profound realization dawned. I was ready, perhaps even eager, to be more than just an observer. Before we delve deeper into this narrative, please do take a quick, fleeting second to bestow a like and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps us grow tremendously. My heartfelt thanks for being here. Now, let's get started. How long? I inquired, my voice carefully neutral. Have you been doing this? She didn't flinch, not even a subtle tightening around her eyes. 6 years, perhaps 7. I watched her closely, intently, trying to decipher something, anything, beneath the placid, unruffled surface of her composure. She sat with her legs crossed demurely, her hands resting easily, almost languidly, in her lap. Confident, comfortable, betraying no hint of nerves, no artifice of performance, just a quiet, unshakable control. And you don't mind, I pressed gently, being watched, her gaze held steady, unwavering, meeting mine without a flicker of hesitation. Not at all. In fact, she added, a subtle, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. I rather like it when someone's paying close attention. I allowed her answer to hang in the air between us, just long enough to feel the simmering heat, the unspoken invitation behind it. Do you ever work with couples? Plenty, she affirmed, her voice still even, still calm, but it always, invariably, depends on who's really in charge. I raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. And who, in your esteemed opinion, do you think that is? You, she stated without a moment's hesitation, her conviction absolute. Definitely you. That elicited a smile from me. Not a wide, effusive grin, just a small, knowing, almost predatory curve of my lips. I shifted in my seat, a subtle, almost unconscious movement, my legs uncrossing. The hem of my dress, as if with a will of its own, slid a fraction higher up my thigh. Intentional or not, I wasn't entirely sure anymore. She noticed. Of course, she noticed. She didn't comment, didn't react overtly, just waited, patiently, expectantly. And if, I posed, my voice a low, deliberate murmur, I only want to watch, then, she responded, her voice a silken caress, I'll make absolutely certain you don't miss a single, solitary thing. That one landed lower, deeper than I had anticipated. I took a slow, deliberate breath and rose from my seat, my movements smooth, fluid, almost serpentine. My heels met the polished hardwood floor with a soft, almost inaudible click as I walked towards my bag. I retrieved the envelope, the contents of which we had previously meticulously discussed, and turned to face her once more. I held it out to her. She took it with one hand, her eyes meeting mine, a silent, knowing acknowledgement passing between us. I'll text you when to arrive, I said, my voice cool, composed. She nodded a single, definitive gesture. Looking forward to it, she departed a moment later. No rush, no protracted goodbyes, just a lingering glance over her shoulder. A look that held, that promised, more than it strictly needed to. That night, I was nestled in bed with my husband. His body moved against mine, a steady, familiar, comforting rhythm, locked in a silent, intimate dance. His hands found my hips, grounding me, anchoring me, while my legs wrapped tighter around him, holding him close, closer still. I guided him with every shared breath, every slow, deliberate grind of my body beneath his. My back lifted instinctively, arching, chasing the intoxicating build-up he worked so diligently, so devotedly to give me. His lips, soft and warm, brushed against the sensitive skin of my throat. I moaned softly, a low, guttural sound of burgeoning pleasure. One hand buried deep in the silken strands of his hair, the other pressed flat against his broad, muscular chest, feeling the undeniable strength, the raw power behind each potent motion. He was trying, truly trying, giving everything he had, and I, in turn, gave just as much, meeting his intensity with my own. I gasped, a sharp, ragged intake of breath, when the exquisitely coiled tension finally, inevitably, broke, tight, overwhelming, breathtakingly sudden. He followed a moment later with a soft, contented groan, sinking heavily into the sheets beside me, a radiating, palpable heat still lingering, shimmering between us. We lay still for a long, languid moment, our lungs struggling to catch up, the air in the room thick, charged, almost viscous with unspoken emotions, with sated desire. "That was wow," he said finally, his voice a breathless, awestruck whisper. "Yeah," I murmured, my own voice still husky, still trembling slightly. "It was amazing." He turned his head, still breathless, his eyes finding mine in the dim light. "Was that my early birthday gift?" I pressed a soft, lingering kiss to his shoulder. "Number one, my love," I purred. "I've arranged something even more special for tomorrow." The next evening arrived in what felt like the blink of an eye. Golden, ethereal light stretched languidly across the polished hardwood floors, warm, inviting, low. She was already there, perched gracefully on the edge of the couch, her ankles crossed demurely, as calm, as composed, as ever. Her very presence seemed to fill the room, effortlessly, without her even trying. She glanced towards the front door, a silent, expectant query. "Where is he?" she inquired, her voice a low, melodious hum. "Still at work," I replied, my own voice carefully neutral. "Should be home any minute now." She tilted her head slightly, a subtle, almost feline gesture. "Did you tell him?" I shook my head, a slow, deliberate movement. "Not yet. He's been guessing rather wildly all day." That drew a quiet, almost imperceptible smile from her, a smile that was measured, knowing, almost conspiratorial. She leaned back against the plush cushions, her arms resting loosely, casually across them, as if she'd done this 100, 1,000 times before. "You really think he'll go for it?" "I don't think," I corrected gently, my voice imbued with an unshakable conviction. "I know." The space between us settled into a low, expectant hum, not nervous, not tense, just waiting. She didn't ask any more questions. She just watched the golden light crawl slowly, inexorably across the floor. Then, the distinct, familiar sound of keys rattling in the lock. The door swung open. He stepped inside. Bag slung carelessly over one shoulder. Tie loosened. Askew. Jacket already discarded. Forgotten. His eyes found her instantly. He stopped, frozen, mid-stride. Silence. A thick, charged, almost unbearable silence. His gaze flickered to me, a silent, desperate question, then darted back to her. "Is this?" I nodded, a single definitive gesture. "She's your surprise." He blinked, his mind clearly struggling to process, to comprehend. "You're serious?" "Completely." The woman, a vision of smooth, confident, almost predatory grace, rose from the couch. She crossed the room with a fluid, unhurried elegance and stopped directly in front of him, her movements calm, yet intensely focused. He looked at me again, his eyes wide, pleading for reassurance, for an explanation. I nodded once more. "It's okay," I said softly, my voice a soothing balm. "She's here. For you." Her hand rose, brushing his cheek with a quiet, almost reverent confidence. Then, without uttering a single word, she leaned in and kissed him. It was slow, simple, exquisitely intentional. When they finally, reluctantly parted, he stood frozen, still processing, still breathing her in, her scent, her essence. I stepped forward and gently, possessively, took his hand in mine. As I led them both, a bizarre, surreal procession, towards the bedroom, I leaned in close and whispered, my voice a low, intoxicating murmur. "This is your gift." A pregnant pause. "Enjoy." The bedroom felt warmer, somehow, than usual. I settled onto the plush couch strategically positioned across from the bed, my posture composed, regal, my legs folded neatly beneath me, every sense, every nerve ending, exquisitely attuned to what was about to unfold. I hadn't said much since we'd stepped inside, just enough to guide them, to remind him, gently but firmly, that this was still his moment, and mine too, in a different, perhaps even more profound way. She stood close to him now, so close that barely an inch of space, of air, remained between their bodies. Her hands, nimble and sure, moved to the front of his pants, her touch calm, confident, every movement imbued with an unshakable, almost clinical sureness. There was no fumbling, no hesitation, no awkwardness, just steady, unwavering control. Her eyes lifted briefly to meet his, not asking, not seeking permission, just anchoring him, holding him captive with her gaze. He looked at me. A pause, pregnant with unspoken questions, lingered in the air. No words were exchanged, but I saw the silent, desperate query in his expression, his final, almost childlike check for reassurance. I nodded once, my expression measured, certain. That, it seemed, was all he needed. She guided him to sit at the edge of the bed, then lowered herself before him with a practiced, almost reverent ease. Her palms slid languidly, provocatively, along the taut muscles of his thighs as she leaned in. He let out a shaky, uneven breath, his fingers gripping the soft fabric of the blanket as his head tilted back, his eyes drifting closed, surrendering to the inevitable. Whatever lingering doubt, whatever nascent apprehension he'd harbored, dissolved, vanquished by the sheer, overwhelming power of her presence, her touch. Her movements were intentional, unfaltering, exquisitely precise. She adjusted with him, responding with an almost preternatural sensitivity to every subtle shift in his breath, every minute unspoken cue. A rhythm began to take shape, grounded, focused, holding him captive, holding him in place. I watched, my own breath catching, hitching in my throat. I shifted, adjusting my position on the couch, a subtle, almost unconscious movement. A soft, insidious pressure began to build deep inside me. Gradual at first, then more insistent, more demanding. My hand rested on my thigh, beneath the concealing fabric of my dress. I didn't move it. I simply allowed it to settle there, a silent, desperate attempt to steady myself against the relentlessly rising tide of tension, of vicarious pleasure. After a moment, a timeless, suspended eternity, she rose. Her hand slid upward, a slow, languid caress, along his torso as she stood, then moved, with a deliberate, almost taunting slowness, to the buttons of his shirt. She opened each one slowly, meticulously, with the effortless ease of someone intimately familiar with every step, every nuance of this intoxicating dance. Piece by piece, his clothing fell away, discarded, forgotten, until his broad chest rose and fell freely, rhythmically, under the warm, inviting light of the room. Then it was her turn. She undressed with a graceful, almost clinical efficiency. Nothing flashy, nothing overtly theatrical, just a quiet, unshakable command evident in every fluid, deliberate movement. Each layer came away smoothly, effortlessly, until nothing, absolutely nothing, remained between them, between their naked, vulnerable bodies. She gently, almost tenderly, pressed him back onto the bed and climbed over him with a calm, confident certainty. He didn't resist. He couldn't. She adjusted her stance, settling into a slow, deliberate pace that matched, that mirrored, the rise and fall of his ragged breath. Every shift, every subtle movement was deliberate, designed to connect, to bind, not to dominate. She stayed focused, her attention entirely, consumingly, on him. His hands rested, almost passively, at her waist. His head leaned back against the plush pillows, his eyes still closed. His breathing grew deeper, heavier, his body sinking, melding with hers. Moment by agonizing, exquisite moment, a sound, soft, involuntary, escaped me. My hand now rested just beneath the hem of my dress, unmoving, yet undeniably, thrillingly present. I wasn't detached. I couldn't be. I felt everything. The insistent, coiling build-up deep inside me. The searing heat under my skin. The undeniable burgeoning need that stirred, that intensified, with every stolen glance, every shared, vicarious reaction. Watching wasn't enough anymore. The pull, the irresistible magnetic pull, was growing too strong, too powerful to ignore. I pressed my knees closer together, my own breathing becoming shorter, shallower, more ragged. She leaned forward, bracing herself against his chest, her movements becoming more urgent, more demanding. A deep guttural sound, a sound of pure, unadulterated pleasure, rumbled from deep within him, low, full, resonant. That was it. That was the catalyst. I rose from the couch, my movements slow, purposeful, almost dreamlike. My legs were a little unsteady, not from nerves, not anymore, but from how long, how desperately I'd held myself in place, fighting against the rising tide. I took a step, then another. My eyes remained locked on them, on the intoxicating tableau unfolding before me as I crossed the space, the chasm that separated us. I wasn't just watching anymore. I couldn't. I stopped at the edge of the bed, my pulse finally, blessedly, steadying, my eyes locked, with an almost hypnotic intensity on the two of them. She looked up from where she straddled him, her expression composed, poised, almost regal, but something in her eyes, some subtle softening, some unspoken acknowledgement, shifted the moment our gazes met. Without a word, she eased off him, her movements fluid, graceful, and rose to her feet, giving me the space, the opening she knew, with an almost telepathic certainty I needed, I craved. I stepped forward. She met me halfway, her hands brushing against my arms, a fleeting electric contact, then gliding gently, possessively, down my sides. I leaned in and kissed her, not hesitant, not cautious, not any more. It was warm, certain, a connection already forged, already understood. She returned the kiss fully, her body pressing softly, yielding into mine. Then, together as one, we turned to face him. He was still seated at the edge of the bed, his broad chest rising and falling visibly, his eyes wide, almost wild, following our every motion, barely breathing, a captive audience to our silent, seductive dance. We lowered ourselves in front of him, a synchronized, almost choreographed movement. I took one side, she took the other. Our fingers grazed, a fleeting, electrifying spark, once, before we fell, effortlessly, seamlessly, into rhythm, alternating, syncing naturally, moving together without words, without the need for them. My lips traced a slow, deliberate, intoxicating path along his skin, while hers moved in a measured, mesmerizing pattern. When I paused, she leaned in, taking my place, and when she shifted back, I resumed. A silent, sensual, perfectly orchestrated ballet. His muscles tensed, his legs braced, every fiber of his being alive, alert. One hand gripped the blanket, his knuckles white. The other clenched, a tight, desperate fist, by his side. His whole body was alive, thrumming, vibrating under our meticulous, devoted attention. And still, we moved as one, fluid, practiced, utterly, gloriously instinctive. Eventually, after an eternity, after a fleeting moment, she rose, her movements fluid, graceful, and extended her hand to me. I took it, my fingers lacing with hers, and she helped me, gently, to my feet. She began to undress me, one delicate strap at a time, each piece of fabric falling away with a careful, almost reverent ease. There was no rush in her movements, no hint of impatience, only a quiet, unwavering focus, an almost clinical precision. When I stood before them, fully revealed, utterly vulnerable, she leaned in and kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, more possessive, as if she were conveying something, some profound, unspoken truth that didn't need, couldn't be, articulated with mere words. I stepped back towards the bed, her gaze, intense, unwavering, following mine. When I reached it, I lay down, my heartbeat steady now, yet full, resonant, a powerful drum in the quiet room. She lingered above me for a moment, her eyes, dark, knowing, locked on mine. "Couldn't keep just watching, huh?" she murmured, a hint of amusement, of knowing satisfaction in her voice. I smiled, my own voice barely above a whisper, husky with unspoken desire. "I just wanted a better view." She moved between my legs then, lowering herself with a deliberate, almost feline grace. Her mouth found me gently, her touch anchored, sure, every movement imbued with an exquisite, almost unbearable intentionality. My head fell back against the pillows as her rhythm deepened, intensified, not rushed, not shy, just intentional. I reached for the edge of the sheets, my fingers gripping, twisting, grounding myself in the intoxicating, overwhelming sensation that was building, steadily, relentlessly beneath my skin. Then, I saw him. He climbed onto the bed behind her, his movements measured, deliberate. He placed his hands at her waist, a firm, possessive anchor, and slowly, inexorably, they began to move together. Their rhythm took shape, a silent, devastating symphony, and I could feel it. Every nuance, every subtle shift. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, then more defined, more demanding. Each motion she absorbed from him, each powerful thrust was reflected, amplified in how she moved against me, her pace adjusting, her focus sharpening, intensifying. The connection, the raw, primal energy passed through her, a conduit, a vessel. Her breath landed, hot and moist, on my skin. Her body aligned perfectly, seamlessly, with his. And the result, the inevitable, glorious result, was a wave, a torrent, of pure, unadulterated sensation flowing directly, overwhelmingly, into me, steady, continuous, relentlessly, exquisitely growing. The pressure inside me rose, an unbearable, intoxicating crescendo. No gentle build-up, just a relentless, driving momentum. My legs pulled closer, instinctively. My grip on the sheets tightened, my knuckles white. And when it finally, inevitably, overtook me, it came fast, sharp, complete. A release I couldn't resist, couldn't deny. My breath escaped in a rush, a torrent, my body trembling, convulsing, beneath her, beneath them. She stayed with me through every single shattering second of it. Only once I had finally blessedly settled did she lift her head. Behind her, his breathing had grown ragged, harsh, almost painful. His movements had lost their earlier precision, their careful control. Now, they were driven by a raw, primal urgency, a desperate, insatiable need. He leaned forward at last, his forehead resting heavy near her shoulder, his entire frame, every muscle, every fibre, coming to a shuddering, exhausted stillness. She eased aside, her movements slow, calm, almost reverent. He shifted beside me, his breath catching, hitching in his throat, and let himself fall, a dead weight, to the pillow at my side. His fingers, trembling slightly, found mine, lacing with them. I gave them a gentle, reassuring squeeze. He kissed me, a soft, lingering, tender kiss. I smiled, my own voice a breathless, shaky whisper, still struggling to catch up. Happy birthday. If this were your gift, how would you react? Would you embrace it wholeheartedly, or would you find yourself turning it down? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear what you think. And before you leave, please do show some love with a like, subscribe for more adventures, and click that bell icon to make sure you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.